makes me much more prepared for these meetings.
Thank you.
You know, I said the very same thing at the BSC meeting, so it's very helpful. I'll put forward a nomination to accept the approval.
Can I get a second?
Second.
There we go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. Kind of have that same print at my house behind you.
Yeah, just a little Van Gogh here and there.
Yep. Okay, membership update, outreach to Amazon. Tara, I think that's you, right?
That's me. Yes. I did just want to let you all know a couple of things about this. So last time we spoke, the update was that Chris Bateman has left Amazon, and actually my understanding is moved, someone said, back to Tennessee. I didn't know him super well, so I didn't realize that's where he was from. But I have reached out to the contact that he gave me. That has not gone great. But what I have done is scheduled a meeting here, I think it's in the next week or two, with our colleagues over at Triad to have kind of a larger conversation about making sure that we're properly engaging Amazon in our work, whether that's ideally board membership, but definitely just trying to get a better feel for what's going on with outreach to them and just as a company overall. I mean, and really, I guess, kind of multiple companies, different, just different phases in their work. So that is happening. And then the other thing that I had decided to wait on after I talked to Lee Kroom about who is the president of Triad, is then going back to Judge Moore, and he had offered to continue to connect me with Amazon, but I just would want to know what Triad's up to first before I create more confusion than help on that. So that's where we are on that piece. We're doing okay in terms of percentages, which we can talk about here in a bit, but it's really just about, I think, making sure that we're engaging, such a key employer and an employer that's about to continue to grow a whole lot more. So that is your update.
Appreciate that. Okay, and we have two membership nominations that we'll want to present to the board meeting. These are both replacements. So one is for CVG, Sybil Murphy. I think she retired.
She is retiring, or just, yeah, there's an overlap period between her and her successor.
Okay.
But she's definitely in the process of retiring.
Okay. Yeah, when she told me that several months ago, she seemed way too young for that. So
Agreed.
She described what she was going to do instead. I thought, okay, that's a better plan. So,
Yep.
Gina Stowe, is it?
So I'm actually not 100% sure about that.
Right.
I have not had a chance to converse with her, but we've exchanged a lot of emails. We actually went ahead and scheduled her, hopefully not, presumptuous on my part, but went ahead and scheduled her membership orientation because I know that we really wanted to continue CVG engagement. So she seems very eager to get started. And I don't know if you had a chance to read the bio that I sent along with the membership form. She has some really interesting experience that I think will be a huge attribute for the WIB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I reached out to her via LinkedIn to offer connection and welcome. So
Great.
Very good. And you had talked about, you'd already given us a bit of background on Anna Larson.
Yes.
Then she is involved on other WIBs currently, correct?
That is correct. This will be her fourth WIB to join because of her role statewide in Skills U, which is the adult education programming for the Commonwealth. All WIBs are required to have a representation from that organization. And so she, I think, had tried to divide out a little bit more with Danita joining, but then now that Danita has moved on to a different role, Anna is going to be our point person. I also wanted to add that because of her unique position, having served concurrently serving on so many other WIBs, she might be a good candidate to be your fifth individual here on the MBO committee. She certainly is going to have a lot of perspective about how things run in other areas. And normally I wouldn't recommend a new board member for this committee, but she really would bring kind of a diversity of experience that I don't really know that we have too many other people. I think Ryan Henson's maybe on one other board and Connie Schnell's on maybe two others. But anyway, they're kind of already happily serving on their own committees. So I did think that Anna might be a good candidate for that.
Suggestion. I know that I worked with Connie when I was working with a couple of other WIBs, and her insight on some of the mechanics of the DNA of those other WIB committees or WIB organizations was really, really helpful. So it could be really a strong add to this group.
That's
Just my
helpful. Thanks.
opinion.
I also found this committee fairly straightforward and easy to acclimate to relative to some of the other committees, program and youth and even business services. You almost need a lot of understanding of the landscape before you start to bring your voice forward. In this one, you can see the horizon pretty clearly. So I think it's a great suggestion, Tara. Thank you.
Great. The other thing too, to kind of reiterate what you just said, is that while she does not have a lot of local experience necessarily, she really understands how WIBs work. And so whereas maybe on business services or PY, she wouldn't necessarily be as familiar with our area, she might really be able to dig in this particular group. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Well, if those, you'll need to take action on each, but following that, I'll make sure to get the nomination piece filled out on those forms. I typically wait to just make sure the committee feels kind of good about moving forward. And then Brent Cooper has to complete the nomination for Gina. And then I believe I go to Judge Pendry for our Skills U person. I think all the non-business people go through the Clio. So. And by the way, Heidi.
Any concerns, anything we need to discuss, or are we ready to give the thumbs up for that to move forward? All right, thanks, Dean. All right, moving quickly, we're already on F here. So membership and representation on the WIB and the committees. So Tara, you did not attach that. You attached the attendance report, but not the full membership report.
I can bring that up. However, Mr. Chair, I think you might, I neglected to put action requested on this particular agenda. But I apologize. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes.
I just do what I'm told, Tara.
Sorry.
So I'm seeking a motion to I need a motion for each nomination, please.
Okay, I'll bring that forward.
For Gina Stowe?
For Gina and also for Anna.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's just do the votes separately just to keep it clear here. So all those in favor of bringing the nomination forward for Gina Stowe, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that passes. And then all those in favor of bringing forth the nomination of Anna Larson, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes as well. One day I'm going to find Robert and beat him up for his rules of order. Don't transcribe that one, Connie, please. That's off the record.
I'm gonna pull up the spreadsheet so that you can see it. So hold that thought for 1 second. It's been a little hectic lately, so you might be able to sense that from your packet, so I apologize. Okay, let's see here. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, So, oh, here, I need to go into Excel. This should look exactly the same as last time. And it still has Danita on there, so she's gonna need to come off. If you remember, so when we spoke last time, we need 20% in this first column, or first section, we're at 22.86 for individuals in the sort of education, economic development, et cetera section. And then we need over 51%, so we're a little tight down here, but we're still in compliance for business. And I did remove Chris Bateman, which is why that's a little bit lower than it previously was. If, as a reminder, these blocks that are like the darker color, and we have bylaws on the list for later in the agenda, but these are individuals whose third term will be expiring at the end of June. So just as a reminder, Ryan Henson, I believe we addressed his issue with the last change to the bylaws. It's already in place, where if there's no one else to replace him, he can basically just be renominated again. Chad Day, you all took care of his sort of transition planning already last year with the nomination of both Jared Tiemeyer and Vicky Burling. So when Chad rolls off, that will still be fine in that section for our requirements to have two labor representatives. Michelle Sesteric, I believe it was determined that, and this is what the bylaw revisions that are ongoing would address, but basically that she could be nominated once more for up to an additional 3 terms, but no more than that for a lifetime of 6 terms. Christy Henry, this is going to be a loss. I know she doesn't contribute a whole lot to the conversation, but she really does a lot to support our Williamstown location, and really does a lot in the Grant County community with regard to working with the Career Center. So it'll be important to continue to make sure she stays engaged, even if she's not on the board any longer. And it will be important to try to find someone from that community to serve. We don't have too many people who live and work in Grant County on the board. So I think she's the only person who truly lives and works there. We have some other people who kind of are represented because of their business having a location there, but Michelle Tyson, current treasurer, her term is expiring, and then Rhonda Whitaker. Those are just a couple things that I wanted to bring to your attention. I have been doing quite a bit of outreach to Pendleton County to try to work with Judge Fields about nominating a business person. So we would have someone on the board from Pendleton County. That is not going great, just to be honest, but I continue to work with him, and he's been trying to find somebody. So we'll just continue to do that. And then
Out of curiosity, what are the challenge points in that conversation?
yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the challenges is, so Pendleton County recently got an access point through the Career Center at the Pendleton County Library, but that's a pretty new relationship still. And so even though the Career Center staff have been making office hours in Pendleton County, for a long time, I think there's still just some confusion on the part of the community of exactly what the board's role is. I've been working really hard to try to have more touch points with them, and with Bill Mitchell, who's their community development person, who incidentally is actually an area development district employee and somebody that I've worked with for a long time. But I just think that maybe it's not completely clear what the benefits would be. And then the other issue is that there really just are not as many business people to choose from in Pendleton County. And so therefore, finding somebody who not only is available, but has the time to commit and everything, I think is a little bit of a challenge too.
Would, we set up the access point at the library, is that correct?
That's right.
Is there a librarian that might be interested in a dual kind of role? I think, one of the things we always worried about for Grant and Pendleton and Owing County was the ability to travel to the meetings was always a problem. Well,
Right.
that's kind of over, really.
Right.
So I wonder if we just somehow get the easiest foothold we can in those areas so that we can start to at least gain a little bit of momentum instead of
Yeah.
trying. So I'm kind of making the analogy of let's hit a single before we try to hit a home run.
Yeah.
We
I'm
did
just
that.
about that.
What category would they fall into if you use the
So-
library? It would not be business, right?
So it would not, it would be the same category where you see Dave Schroeder's name. He's on line 16. Sorry. I don't know why all these notifications are popping up, but, so this is the, like labor, youth serving organization, community organization section here. So they would, there's sort of 3 top sections, rows 2 through 7, which is education, adult education, higher education, K-12 are all in that first section. And then economic development, OVR, occupational rehabilitation, and Connie Schnell, Office of Career Development. Those 3 are kind of in their own section, which is rows 8 through 10. And then that 11 through 18 are like youth serving organizations and labor organizations. So we do have to be careful about that section not getting too big. But when Chad Day rolls off, then we could talk about doing that, because right now that number is working. So we could try to recruit. I like the idea. I agree with you, John. We got to watch the ratios. But after June, we could do that. So that's a thought.
Yeah, I know that your comment about businesses are not as plentiful as they are in Northern Kentucky is absolutely true.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if this is just a good way to start to make the case to get some type of business that has some voice into the community. Maybe even a bank person in that area might be good. But
Yeah, that's a good
you know.
suggestion. The other person that Judge Fields was trying to recruit, which I thought really actually would have been a nice fit, is actually a doctor. And he does technically have an affiliation with St. Elizabeth Physicians, which I wasn't sure exactly if that would be problematic. St. Elizabeth Physicians, I know, is affiliated with St. Elizabeth Healthcare. I didn't know if that would be a problem to have 2 people from a similar organization, but the roles between this person and Jamie Parsons are very different. This is like a practicing physician who kind of has his own, like satellite office there in the community. So, I thought that would have been, kind of an interesting, and he would have then had the business tie and the, tie to one of our target industries too, which would have been, nice. But I think it's just been hard to connect with that person.
Okay.
So I'll keep working on it. And then the
There's
other thing I was,
also a couple
oh,
of
go ahead.
manufacturing plants there, it looks like, too. I see Life Fitness as a manufacturing plant for their fitness equipment there. And I don't
Yeah,
know, I don't know if we could network into somebody in one of those manufacturing plants, see if anybody knows anybody.
I could definitely talk to Bill Mitchell, their community development person, and as well as the
Yeah, 'cause there's
KCC staff.
KG manufacturing, I don't know what these people, I know what Life Fitness does, but there's 2 or 3 of them in there. But I don't, again, it's whether you get somebody who wants to be engaged in part of what it takes to do this.
Right, Hammer Strength, and they might be affiliated with Life Fitness, but I know they have a facility there, and they've
Yeah.
really struggled to get employees. I know they've been working with our KCC team to do some hiring events, so it's a good point, for sure.
Yeah, I think Life Fitness and Hammer Strength are connected.
Are they? It makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a line of. That was my other thought with reaching out to Triad, was some of these other positions that on the board that are people rolling off on the business side. You know, not to get too off track, but we've talked about wanting to make sure that we think about racial and ethnic diversity when we think about board recruitment as well. And so I thought it might be helpful to talk with them and about, I mean, obviously you all as well, but just, are there businesses that might be interested, from their standpoint and a target industry standpoint, but could they also help us kind of think through additional individuals that might be good candidates? So just a thought there too. So
Mhm.
trying to really better align our work with Triad so that we are working together and not, at odds. So I don't think that we are at odds. That's probably not the right word, but making sure that we're really aligned. They continually reference how important workforce is. So just want to make sure that we're, seen as a real asset for them. But were there any other questions about the grid? I can bring it back up.
With respect to your comment about Christie's roll off and then not really having true representation of Grant County, would you expect a similar challenge with Grant County as you're getting with Pendleton, or do we have a better
We have a-
prospect list, I guess?
We have I think just a stronger potential for finding somebody in Grant County. I think we've been really growing the relationship with Jamie Baker, who is their economic development person. And I feel she's actually asked us to present at an upcoming Grant County Chamber breakfast. It's via Zoom, so that's why the air quotes. And so I think it will be easier to recruit someone from that community. I mean, we'll see when it happens, but yeah, I think it will be better.
Okay.
And we do have, I think it helps that we have our Career Center affiliate location in that community too. So there's already really some ties there, with employers who are there locally. So I think that'll help a lot.
Speaking of the Career Center, would it be possible to hear from them who their most actively engaged businesses are?
Absolutely. We did that
Okay.
in Carroll County. Yep. And we can definitely do that again for Grant. Yep. Let me make a note of that. I'm actually meeting with Corey Eimer immediately after this for our monthly check-in. So I'm going to add that to my OneNote list
Yeah,
of things.
I was going to suggest Corey, so that's good that you already had him in mind. And I know that Brighton had an initiative over the last couple of years to be a little bit more present in Grant County. So Corey, through Brighton's influence, might have a number of different good ideas.
Okay. Yep. It's on the official list now. So I'll talk to him about that.
All right. And then the other one was the attendance spreadsheet.
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to go through that tab by tab.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
I'm gonna not give you whiplash, so let me pull it up and then I'll share my screen. So just one moment. Okay. All right. And the the new form continues to work well. And Connie has been inputting all of the, oops, where'd it go? Sorry. There we go. Okay, so this is the full WIB, and let me see if I can make that a little bit better. So you can see that we did not use this tool for the RSVPs in July, so that's why we have the zeros there. But we, fully met quorum for each of the full, meetings in all the months from July through January, and we're looking good on RSVPs for the March 9th meeting at the moment. As far as attendance, I'm just trying to look really quickly. Like I said, I know we've had a few absences from like Christy Henry in November, for example. Like she said she was coming and then she did it. I mean, that's kind of standard. People have things that come up. The only board member at the moment that is kind of sort of newly, I don't know if it's newly having troubles, but I've maybe just noticed more, is that Dr. Stafford, I think due to the pandemic, his staff is really pushed to the limit at the moment. And so he's had some issues with, actually being able to join some of the meetings. So I'm hopeful that maybe once the school year, gets a little bit less hectic, maybe the school year ends, that he might, I know he's trying his best. A lot of times he'll log in and then he'll get a call and then he'll have to log back out. So I know it's not because of interest. He just has a lot on his plate at the moment.
This shows he actually attended meetings though, doesn't it?
Well, like I said, I think what's been happening is he's logging in.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he'll have a problem and he'll have to leave. That's happened a couple times, not more than a couple. That's happened like a handful of times. So, do you have any questions about this tab, or do you want me to scroll on?
I'd like to talk about Rhonda if we can for a second.
Yes.
So Rhonda has been a real champion of this, and I know her term is ending in June, so she'll be rolling off. Obviously, Duke is, like CVG, a really critical partner for this.
Mhm.
Have we had any conversations with Duke or with Rhonda about who might be her successor?
That's a
in
good
terms of this
point.
Representation?
I have not, and that's a very good call out that we
Okay.
really need to do that. And it seems like there would be a few different people who, maybe it's somebody from the foundation or, somebody else just from operations. But no, it's a very, very good call out.
All right, I'll reach out to her as well. She and I have not had a chance to speak in a while, so it's a good reason to talk and reconnect.
That would be great. I will say I had a meeting with her. It's been maybe like 4 months ago or so, just to try to get, her feedback, and she was really positive. I know she's really busy, but it would be great to leave her with kind of a lasting good impression, and definitely have been trying to do that, but it has been a little hard to connect. So that would be great if you could talk with her directly.
Okay. Will do.
Great. Okay, you want to go on to the next? So here's the executive committee. Sorry, trying to get everything on there. So let's see. So we did not have a meeting in August. But we had full attendance in October and December. And the meeting for February is tomorrow.
Mhm.
But I believe we have full, all 7 out of 7 have said that they plan to attend. So it's looking good for your leadership. Just moving on, since there's not a whole lot of excitement in that tab. This is you guys. So, well done. Oh, we haven't filled this in yet because it's happening real time. You know, let's see, October we had 3, I'm sorry, October we had 5. Well, our rescheduled meeting, we ended up having 3, but really that was 3 out of 4. And then, and today we have 4 out of 4. So we need to, we haven't done this yet with this particular tool, but you know, Chris, we're still numbered as 5 over here on this side. And I probably just need to, like, I'll just show you, like, change it so that just visually it's a little bit easier to see, you know, that really like the total is 4, not 5. Connie, if you don't mind just making a note to do that on the real one, that would be helpful.
And the quorum calculator doesn't worry about that column anyway, by the way.
Right, exactly. No,
It
it's
just
just
looks for the
more,
active ones in that month.
exactly. It's just for the user to not have to do that mental math and subtract Chris and everything. Yep, exactly. And program and youth, we are here. We have continued to have a couple of issues with our Microsoft calendar invites. So that's why it appears that there were no RSVPs in December, because the calendar invitation did not reflect those. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it just, people submitted them and we couldn't tell that they had. So that's why there's no RSVPs. But other than that, this group has been a little tricky, but for the most part, I think we've done okay, you know, keeping it going forward. And we've had a lot of good discussions in the last couple months. Any questions about this group?
Nope.
Okay. And then last, and I know you guys don't love having notes, but we're still in the process of doing all the minutes for the February 17th meeting of BSC. So once what happens is that we have any guests, Connie records them here. And then once they're recorded in the minutes, then we delete them off the notes. But so here you can see what it looks like to be a work in progress. So this is how we handle that in the midst of the meeting. But it's, I mean, Dave, you can speak to this, but I think in general that the attendance has gone okay. We kind of we've had Rhonda miss the last 2 meetings. This is an example of like Dr. Stafford wasn't able to attend this last meeting, nor was Carissa. Kimberly Rossetti is another one, and that's another reason that I want to meet with Triad. She's just seems to not be able to make the BSC meetings, and I think her presence would really help. So trying to figure out more way. I mean, I have fairly regular meetings with her one-on-one, but trying to really strategize about how to engage her in the committee work specifically. And so, you know, Dave, maybe that's something that you and I could brainstorm about too, you know, really finding, I think one of the next projects, by the way, Dave, for BSC might be more interesting to Triad, because I think we should talk about revisiting the KPI. Don't kill me. But that might be a topic that I've been having a lot of conversations with Kimberly about data. So that might be something that she might be, you know, find more compelling.
Yeah, I think overall the conversations have been pretty good, starting to broaden
I
out a
agree.
little bit. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a great suggestion. The more that we can keep Triad involved, I think overall for the WIB, it's much, much better.
Mhm.
So having her there, and she, if I'm not mistaken, I've only met her outside of the WIB once or twice. She's a data person initially, isn't she?
Um,
I got that impression
yeah, I
originally.
was gonna say, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know she did economic development in Lexington before coming to Northern Kentucky, but
Yeah,
I know she definitely understands the role of data and is very interested in making sure that like we're making data-driven choices as a region. So even if she's not, even if that's not her official background, she's definitely interested in that topic.
right. And
Yeah.
I was hoping to engage Brian Boozman a little bit more too.
Yeah.
I've noticed he's been pretty quiet, but he's kind of a bright guy, so I think he could probably come forward a little bit. So yeah, there's a lot of good opportunities. That's for
Yep.
sure. And to John's point, this is one of the areas Rhonda was so strong in. So if we had somebody that was as focused as she is or was on workforce development, it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think all of her attention is on grow at the moment.
Yeah, right, right. Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, any other questions about the grid?
I think the comments that you're making about Kimberly is interesting though, because she's a religious attendee for the full WIB meeting,
Yes.
which I've always kind of almost felt like committees are where the excitement is happening and you learn more about what's going on. So it's interesting that she's taking the time for the full WIB, but like pretty regular, or at least the last 2 meetings, unable to attend this one. So, or 3 of the last 4.
Yeah, 3 of the last 4. So
Yeah.
could even be a standing meeting problem. I don't know.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. She said
fair.
she had a client meeting. So I mean, I think it's more of a, I mean, obviously at Triad, they've got to kind of be there when the clients are, interested in meeting. But so part of it is just, her having to prioritize client meetings. But anyway, just something to think about as we try to make sure that we're engaging them. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Great.
questions? Nope. Okay. I'll come back so we can look at each other, because that helps sometimes.
Sometimes.
Nice. Okay.
You've got the next agenda item, or we've got the next agenda item is the leadership planning, but I wanted to pause for a second and bring up the bylaws changes. I know that we did the first reading and then the mailers went out. I received my copy in the mail, so
Yeah, good.
yeah. The next, we do a second reading before we call to action, or is the next meeting we bring it forward formally?
Yep. The next meeting you can vote.
Okay, and that is March 9th, is that right?
Yes. Tuesday, March 9th at 8:30 a.m. We
Okay.
will see you all there. Yes.
Okay. Have you gotten any feedback on that at all?
Not any at all.
All right.
Except that people said that they got the mailing.
Okay.
So thank you, Connie. Because, just with, I don't know, it seems like with a number of things, the first time that the mailing went out, there were just some challenges for whatever reason. I think, I don't know. But anyway, this time it seemed like it went really smoothly and people said they got it.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll be just kind of a straightforward process. The other thing I have not gotten, which is related, is I have not received any nominations for officers. And so this will be a second time, John, at the March 9th meeting for you to call for officers. But if there's anything else that you would like, I mean, I can place that in the email as a reminder that, if there's anything in particular that you would like for me to do regarding if anyone has an interest in serving as an officer, happy to take any of that guidance.
I wanted to talk today in the group and just what are our potential strategies for doing outreach and encouraging people, because I did not expect a lot of volunteer hand raising, quite frankly. So
Right.
My first question is from the, we look at this roster, this member roster fairly frequently. We obviously know who is targeted to succeed Dana as the chair. I'm wondering if there are other names on this list that you would view as people you think would be valuable playing a role as an officer.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple
Do
of,
you mind bringing the list back up one more time? The
Sure.
large member list?
yeah, absolutely. Is it okay if I just do the first page of the attendance?
Yeah, definitely.
Oops, sorry. Okay. You guys still there? You hear me?
Mhm. Yep.
See that? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. I don't want to make it too much smaller. That's everybody, if you can see that.
Right.
Hopefully you can read that. Let's see. You know what? We do need the other one because it's going to tell us how much time they have left to serve. Hold that thought for just 1 second. I think this is it. Sorry. Stab in the dark. Here, I think this might be the right one. Here we are. Because one person, well, so there, I believe we do have some language in the bylaws, and I can pull that up on a separate screen and look at, is about the individuals that are in leadership positions being from the business community. Does that sound right to you, John?
It doesn't sound wrong.
Yeah,
No, I
I
think
think you're correct.
I recall it being in there.
okay. Because one person that I actually think would be, a valuable member of the leadership team, actually two different people, are Dr. Figueroa and Dave Schroeder. They're just really supportive and engaged members. But I think we have to be really cognizant of all of our neither of those individuals are from the business community. And so, okay, I'm just gonna pull this up and I can read it to you once I get to that point. Okay. So, let's see. It just says, okay, I'm actually not seeing that.
I know, I'm looking for it too, but I remember it being in there though.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I was thinking that. I mean, I don't think I would have made that up. So now I'm trying to figure out where else it would be other than the officers section. Maybe it's under the business. Let's see. Okay, I am not finding that. Not sure if all of you obviously Dean keeps his bylaws close at hand.
Only because when I opened the envelope, I set them on my desk.
Perfect. Just as a reminder, it is a 2-year term for officers, so that's something to keep in mind. Oh, that's a quorum. Oh, here we go. 51% of the executive committee's members must be representatives of business.
Huh.
So that's what it is. So we just need to be, cognizant of that.
What's
Well,
our
and right
current
now,
percentage?
that's 100% of the executive committee is business.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we know that executive committee is not just the 4 officers, but also committee chairs. And right now, all 3 committee chairs, well, besides Dana's a committee chair technically too, but the other 3 committee chairs are all from business as well. So, you know, if you wanted to add one non-business person, I think you'd be fine from a math standpoint.
Mhm.
Other individuals, let's see, Jamie Johnson, I think is really strong. He's extremely passionate about second chance employment. And really, he told me that he is going to be speaking up more. He feels a little more comfortable lately and wants to speak up more in meetings, which I said, great, do that. So he might be somebody to keep in mind for a leadership role as well from Dorman Products.
Yeah, I thought about that. If and when we get back together, the executive committee obviously can still meet in a hybrid format, but it tends to be the most active in discussions amongst, you know, most of those. But I think it's still very possible.
Yeah. And he did, I mean, and he did come up when we were, you know,
Mhm.
remote. At least for that one meeting that we all met, or 2 meetings that we all met when I was director before the pandemic started.
And the non-committee chair positions, that's the secretary and the treasurer, correct?
Correct. So we have chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer.
Okay. And does vice chair, it does not mandate a succession into the chair role, right?
It does not mandate that. I think generally it's a good thing to try to do.
Mhm.
But as far as I recall, it is not anywhere mandated that that would be the case.
Mhm. Okay.
So as far as, you know, recruitment of individuals, you know, I thought you did a nice job at the last board meeting talking about nominating others. And so, you know, I think that's one tactic definitely to continue, is to encourage, you know, people to kind of say, hey, you know, this person I think would do a good job. It certainly isn't the only method. I will say generally the secretary role and the treasurer role, you know, in terms of amount of time, you know, we have done some things with Michelle Tyson to make sure that she feels comfortable with the way that the financials are done. But you know, like a secretary, we actually have someone take the minutes. So
Right.
it's more about their participation in the executive committee.
That would be helpful at the next WIB meeting, just for the, you know, for Carissa and for Michelle to give a blurb of what their experience has been and what the role requires.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Maybe we can even get them to do like just a selfie video or something that we can allow people to watch.
Yeah, I love that. Okay.
Do you mind following up on that, Tara?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I like the idea of the video too, because that way we can, you know, we are going to have a number of items on the agenda, so that way we can be careful about timing.
Yeah.
Yep, I love that idea. Do you want Dana and Michelle Sesteric to do that too? Like, this is what my role has entailed?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah, for those 4 positions.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Maybe I should know this, but in the past, I mean, you know, when I say in the past, I'm kind of talking to Dave, but have have you ever had a situation where, like, say Carissa, she's got some time left on the board, you know, would she, is there a precedent for her, you know, renominating herself to serve again as treasurer, or I'm sorry, as secretary, or, you know, or someone as treasurer, or do we tend to like to circulate those roles?
I can't think of when we've had a renomination.
Okay.
It doesn't leap out at me. I'm not gonna say it hasn't happened, but I don't think it was something that we were very active in.
Yeah.
I, I, no, I can't help you on that one. Sorry.
Okay. I think there's a lot of value in having those roles rotate out
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
having more individuals involved just from an engagement standpoint. But I just was wondering what has typically happened.
yeah. I think on the executive team, the idea was to try to keep the ideas as fresh as possible. So either somebody coming up from the committee side into one of those 4 roles, or somebody stepping down from one of those 4 roles, but still being part of the committee. They kind of phase in and out, if you know what I mean, rather than nominate. But I am a firm believer of fresh ideas. And so I think people that haven't been exposed usually bring really strong input initially.
Cool. Okay. Great. Well, any other things I can show you on this spreadsheet, or any other thoughts? Anybody? No? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And what's the process for committee chairs? We talked about officers, but is that a separate process, or I'm not bringing this up to say I don't want this role anymore. I'm just asking. I also don't want, I want people to be able to step into this role if they want to. So how do we manage that process? So, I mean, just background and full transparency, I was approached, you could have called strong-armed, by Michelle and Barb into doing this, because Michelle also talked about her wanting to move into the vice chair role. So it was, you know, I was asked to do it, and it was something I did gratefully. I am not planning on stepping up into a different role. So, I mean, not in the foreseeable future, let's put it that way. So, there is not a logical reason for me to ask someone to step into my place. So I'm curious, how is that on other committees? Like Dave, I know you were more of an emergency fill-in because of transition on the BSC. And Jamie's program and youth chair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just curious how that has worked in the past, and if we want to provide new guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. So ever since I started, so I've been here now a little over a year, by the way. So time flies. And so far, the only transition of committee chairs has been Dave's role. It's maybe something that we actually should have talked about in the bylaws rewrite, now that I think about it. But you know, it's really not particularly clear exactly how it needs to be done. I think that there's a few different options as far as if you wanted to have it just sort of naturally fall in the same timeline as as the rest of the board member, as the other officers. At the same time, I think that provides a lot of, that's a lot of transition for the executive committee. So I could also make a idea of, if we wanted to see that transition happen on the off years. So, but that would kind of mess everything up if you were a committee chair and you wanted to be an officer. So, I think so far it's just kind of naturally worked out that someone serves for a while and then they move on and someone else serves. It's not a very good answer, but that's what I've seen so far.
Hey, Dave, is this where you nominate John for a officer's role?
I was wondering where that was going to lead up to. Yeah. I can do that though, John, if you want me to.
I'm having audio difficulties and video difficulties. I may have to sign off. Sorry, guys. It's getting really staticky. No, life is a bit crazy right now, so
Yeah,
enjoying my role as board chair of Gateway. So
that's a
an
big
important chair.
role, frankly. That's a big one.
Yeah. I like, but that's a great answer, Tara, because I think it's helpful perspective. I mean, having some stability in Dave's comments, also fresh perspectives. If we could sort of do that on a more organic method, that would be great. So I think it's more a matter of if we see, we just have to keep an eye on things not getting too stagnant.
Yeah.
So if we feel like that's happening, then that's also part of our role, perhaps, is to challenge the status quo.
I don't particularly personally feel like, I feel like there's a lot of things that are not as status quo as maybe they previously were. So I feel like at the moment we have a lot of transition going on. So, so it's probably okay if the committee chairs are, are all right with staying in their roles. We can, like you said, it can be a little bit more of an organic process. I tend to think on roles like that, it'll sort of work itself out, that if someone's ready to move on, then they'll let us know.
Okay. Well, then I'll make sure that I'm really specific in the next WIB meeting that we're asking for nominations for the secretary, treasurer, vice chair, and chair. So it's clear that that's there. And
Perfect.
not confuse the message any further.
Cool.
Okay. So
I'm pulling
the
the agenda back up.
what was the note though about the October meeting with the, that was an old
That
note, right?
that was one of the ongoing issues with the agenda that I made for you. So I apologize.
Okay, no worries.
We did talk about it at the October meeting though. It's just, we've talked about it since then. I did actually have one other thing that I was hoping, let's see, to cover. Let's see, this meeting started at 2. So you guys are committed till 3:30, is that right?
Yes. Committed.
Okay, awesome. Well, Mr. Chair, would it be all right if we talked a bit about what's going on with our local plan and strategic planning process for a bit?
Yes, definitely.
Great. So a quick update on that, and I please forgive me because I don't want this to sound duplicative, especially for poor Dave, who's heard this now a couple times, but did just want to make sure we're all on the same page with what we're talking about. So the WIB has a responsibility through WIOA, right? So we get this federal funding, we call it WIOA, and we have to write every 2 years a local plan. It's like a comprehensive plan and a regional plan, and they're kind of intertwined. And the regional plan is when a few different local areas get together and collaborate on part of the plan. So we collaborate with Bluegrass, which is Lexington, and Lincoln Trail, which is like Bardstown, Elizabethtown, that area. And we're supposed to coordinate also with Kentuckiana Works, which is Louisville. So you kind of imagine like the whole Golden Triangle thing going on, and a little further south with Bardstown. But Louisville is committed to planning with Indiana. So they, no offense, don't want to plan with us because they want to plan with Indiana, which is right across the river. Honestly, we should probably think about doing that with Cincinnati. And I don't know if you guys heard, but Jason Ashbrook's the new director for the Southwest Ohio WIB. And so it seems like it would be a great opportunity in a couple of years for us to coordinate that. But in the meantime, we're planning with Kentucky, and that is our region. You might recall me reporting at the January meeting that our plan was due June 30th, but it's been a busy couple months, and it briefly was going to be due March 31st, and now it is due April 30th. It's a 180-ish page document, so it's a little bit to handle, and it requires potentially a 14-day or maybe a 30-day public comment period. And the reason I say potentially is because the federal law says 30 days, but the state has told us 14. And so we're probably going to go with the 30 just to be safe. So there's a lot to do in a relatively short period of time. Simultaneously, what Dana and I decided to do when we designed this process was you guys get to do a strategic plan for the board, right? Board operations. This is like very high level strategy. What are the priorities for the board, right? Where do you guys want to focus our attention? Really, it's like the opposite of the local plan. The local plan is that here is everything comprehensive. The strategic plan is very, very laser focused. So, but we elected to do these processes simultaneously for a couple reasons. One, we don't want you to get plan fatigue. And also, if we're going to be talking about everything at the comprehensive level, it's actually a really nice time to identify trends and then to narrow in about what the strategic plan could look like. So with the change in the deadline, they're just going to be like a little bit less aligned from a timing standpoint. Basically, the timeline for the strategic plan will remain exactly the same, but we're going to need to finish the local/regional part of the comprehensive plan more quickly. So that's been okay. What we've done is we have really, I think, better than we expected, been able to divide up the components of the local and regional plan and divide them out by each one of the committees this month. And each committee talking about a couple key areas, and we're just going to write it up after that. So it's going okay. And like I said, simultaneously, I've been tracking themes, concerns that the board has, or areas where the board really feels like you all want to dig in topic areas. And so then we'll be able to explore those more deeply through the strategic planning committee and the executive committees diving into those too. And so in April, I'll be coming to this group for sort of, final comments about that, and hopefully a vote in May. So that's the new timeline. Not really new, slightly revised timeline. So first of all, does anybody have any questions about all of that? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. I have two questions that are from the local plan that I would like to get your feedback about. And unfortunately, I did have a question for the KWIB, and they did not get back to me, but we have a former member with us of the KWIB, and so maybe he will be able to shed some light on one of these items. So, so first of all, there's only two questions that I have for you guys today, so this should be painless. I do want to mention, though, before I dive into those two questions, that just keep in mind that we are dividing up the sections amongst all the committees. If we have time today, I would be really interested in getting your feedback about diversity, equity, inclusion from this committee's standpoint. because we do think so much here about board makeup. There's so many different aspects to DEI, right? There's programmatic aspects, and so the outcomes and how do we make sure we're having equitable outcomes for all of our clients. But I think there's also a board operations standpoint to it. And so if we get time, we're going to do that today. If we do not have time, we'll do it at the next committee meeting, because we will still have a little bit of time for that. And I might do some targeted outreach to you guys about that piece as well. Okay, so number one, they would like us to describe local board actions to become and remain a high-performing local board, consistent with the factors developed by the KWIB. We talked about this a little bit at the executive committee last time, that, you know, back in 2013, the Northern Kentucky WIB was designated a high-impact board. That's not really a designation that I see used anymore. And there's nothing about becoming one on the KWIB's website. You know, it just doesn't seem to be a designation that's still in place. I tried to do some work to determine, I mean, I have a general idea of what kinds of things make us a high impact board, right? It's our performance, it's how we're, you know, how our outcomes are going. But I really couldn't find anything about specifically what those were. So I was just curious if you all are aware, or if you had any feedback about, you know, our WIB was one of the first to achieve that designation. So just didn't know if you had any thoughts about what it was, or if you wanted to weigh in on how we became one.
Well, I will bring the folklore portion of the discussion up. So the Northern Kentucky WIB was the first to become that, to receive that designation. A lot of that had to do with the fact that we actually sat on the task force as the KWIB, or the governing authority in Frankfurt, whoever it was at the time, was going forward. I think they used a number of consultants to kind of lead that path forward. And a lot of that was based on the strong activity by the partners at the career centers at the time, the results that they got, the rapid response, and then frankly, the way that we began to look at data as a board to drive decision making. So that was really how this WIB got that designation. And from 2013 to probably 2016 or 2017, it became norm for everybody to try to use data-driven criteria to make decisions. So now it's kind of like a buzzword, right? Everybody's trying to do it. The ones that have been successful have already adapted it into their DNA. So I do think it's time to move forward. I kind of find it kind of apropos to have that as part of our moniker, so to speak. So I tend to agree. That's a little bit of the folklore about it.
That's helpful. Anybody else?
I don't know if this was your WIB question or not, but that designation, I don't recall it ever coming up in discussions. It was much more focused. We were much more focused on being certified as a work-ready community, and certainly having the WIBs lead the charge to ensure that was happening. And I know that that was something our WIB locally did and talked a lot about. And I think we're at that designation in all of our areas, or I believe so. So it's not something that I would say is sticky at that state level, but even then it's been several years since I've been on the WIB, so the state WIB.
Work Ready Communities actually is continuing, and they are reinvigorating. They just hired a new staff person, actually 2 new staff people to run that. So just interestingly, that one is one that continues, and they're putting a whole nother, you know, breath of air into that to continue it forward. So all of our communities are either Work Ready certified, or I can't think of the designation at the moment, but it's like they're working on it. Like that's sort of like not quite there, but they're actively working on it. The only one that had a little trouble with is Owen County, and Corey, Eimer, and I have both been trying to lend our support to them. Struggled a little bit to get the committee together consistently. But okay, well, that's fine. I think I will just, okay, so let's ask this another way. Is there anything else besides our partnerships, our outcomes, performance-wise, and looking at data that you feel makes us a high-performing board now? Or maybe I should even start with, do you feel like we are a high-performing board now? Without a rubric necessarily, but just more of your opinion.
So I'll just leap in, of course. I think that one of the things that I think is a strength of this particular board, again, goes back to the way that the Career Center is set up, but really the results of having those relationships through the Career Center kind of fostered the employer roundtable, which has spread through the community. The WIB and their relationships were a key driver for the GROW initiative initially. So I think one of the things that we have to consider is how do we become that change agent, you know? It's not, I don't like the word disruptor, but how do we refresh has been really important. And I think that's one of the strengths that this WIB has brought forward in making that the status quo of Northern Kentucky right now.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Anybody else?
So I guess I would ask the question, are you looking for what do we do to take the next step or to accentuate everything that we've done up to this point? What's the next big thing for us to attack as a board? Is that where you're headed?
So that is a great question. This document, despite its name of being a plan, tends to ask questions about what is, as opposed to what is coming. But that is why Dana and I chose to try to weave our strategic planning process into the sort of the DNA, if you will, of this local plan, is to try to, even though they're not really asking us to try to reflect a forward-looking direction. So the question it asks is, what are we doing to become and remain a high-performing local board? So it's a little bit open for interpretation. Because first you have to decide what would make you a high-performing local board. And they specify to use factors developed by the NKWIB, but as far as I can tell, there aren't any. I don't know if that helped, Dean. But
It does. It just, yeah.
makes you feel any better. The whole document is like this.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. So, no, I guess in my mind, I'm wondering, is this a point where you reiterate what we do well and then say, and then we add as an example, by expanding our focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, we will then be able to engage at a deeper level with the community, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that becomes that forward looking instead of what is.
I think it's very reasonable to say, here's what we think we do well, and here's what we want to continue to pursue. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think continue to pursue is good, but maybe how we leverage what we do well already into
Yeah.
a higher
That's a good point.
performance is better.
Yep, that's a good point.
I think that we have to take the high road on those types of questions, if possible. I know it's kind of late in the process for you to be talking like that, but I think
That's okay.
the higher pathway is probably going to serve us better, or at least the next series of boards.
I do believe part of that question, or part of the answer to that question, is related around engagement and representation. So I think what I've enjoyed about being a participant, a member of this board, is that it is full of very actively engaged people. So therefore, I am more actively engaged and feel like I'm making a difference as opposed to just showing up. The other piece I've appreciated, especially in my work in this committee, is how much we are trying to ensure that we have representation in our membership from the areas and populations that we serve. And that to me still feels very aspirational. We're far away from where I think we would ideally want to be. But I do feel like it's a focus for us. We have decent traction, and it's a constant theme. That said, though, a high performing, whatever it may be, is a relative term. So I have no idea how we compare to other local WIBs. I will say that there was a reason I was not disappointed that I did not continue on in the state WIB, because I did not feel like that was a very high performing organization to be part of. It felt like a large gathering of people talking to hear themselves talk. So, but I wasn't on a committee. And I think, again, that gets into the real action is at the committee level. And when you're a board of, it was like 50 something people, that's a lot of updates to sit through. So
Yes. Well, to your point, I was recently in a meeting of other WIB directors where we actually went through the KWIB committees to try to ensure that there was at least one WIB director on every committee. And the new director, he's interim for the KWIB, was there. And there were a couple committees that that nobody knew what they were for the KWIB, or like if they had acronyms in them and no one knew what the acronyms stood for. So, and these are including WIB directors who have been in their positions for like 20 years. So yeah, no, it's a little bit of an enigma for sure. I think they're trying to demystify some of that work at the state level as well, which is a good thing. Okay, well, no, I mean, I don't disagree with you all that high performing is an extremely subjective term, especially if we don't know what the rubric is. I will continue to try to get it. And, from there, be able to hopefully give you guys, some factors to maybe look at and reconsider this conversation. So, but I just wanted to, at least bring it up here so it would be something that you were familiar with. The last question is kind of a continuation of this one, which is engaging. The question really doesn't even make sense, sorry, but what the question is describe how you will use the results of any feedback to make continuous quality improvements. Now, on the KCC side, we actually have a continuous quality improvement committee. And they are constantly looking at things like hiring events, what went right, what went wrong, and continuing to do continuous quality improvement in a very focused way. So certainly we do have some of that going on. I'll be honest, we don't do a ton of that at the WIB staff level, partially because we tend to be, frankly, reacting to whatever comes our way from the state. But certainly would be happy to look into what that would look like at a board level. This plan covers all of the above in terms of board operations as well as career center operations. So I just wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts about continuous quality improvement or anything related to that, either for this local plan or just, again, sort of capturing themes that we might need to address in our strategic planning work. And if not, that's fine too. Just wondered.
I think the idea that the Career Center already has a CI group in place is good, because there's a fundamental process that you use to do continuous process or continuous improvement. I do like the fact, and I'd like to see this WIB do a little bit more of taking advantage of ad hoc committees, similar to what we did in the business, the BSc on the certification. I think having the ability to tap into our members would really help us out. And if I was to answer that question, I might lead in that direction of utilizing the continuous improvement actions that we already have, but learning how to quickly bring a ad hoc group together to solve a problem at the board level. We used to do it a lot more, and we haven't done it in the past so much. But to John's point about the board being engaged in solutions and where the rubber meets the road, I think we could probably take that to the next level in some form or fashion.
Okay, that's really helpful. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, great. Well, thank you for indulging me for 22 minutes. I will just tell you briefly that some of the themes that I see coming out of this process that I think we'll be having some more dialogue about on the strategic planning side are continuing to really get the data that we use for decision making right, really thinking through what are those key, maybe not key performance indicators, but what are some of the key community indicators that we need to be watching and responding to. That continues to come up kind of over and over again in different people's comments. So again, these are just themes, haven't really hashed these out, but just things for you to think about. Another thing that continues to come up, I think a lot because of the work that's going on right now with the industry certifications that Dave is leading, is our relationship with education, kind of specifically, that high school career pathways, but also post-secondary, and really trying, I think about my career E3 and all of the work-based learning stuff that's going on, John, and it's awesome. And how do we make sure that the WIB is sort of facilitating on our side some of those conversations about I just saw this really cool tool that the Philadelphia Feds put out. Okay, if you are in this job and you want to make more, or maybe you lost a job in this occupation, what are you qualified for, right? Like, what are some of these overlapping, like, it's like a occupational mobility tool, I think is what they call it. And it's really, really cool. And I think some of the things that have come up in this certification piece is that continued, it's really a language barrier between some of our employers and what we're hearing from them about what they're looking for versus how education tends to describe some of these things. So anyway, I think that's not even an articulated theme, but just that whole issue of how do we help facilitate some of those conversations. And I talked to Amanda Johanneman quite a bit about this, John, but I think there's something there for the WIB that we could help with. So just a thought, again, just a theme that's come up. And obviously for our job seekers, how do we help remove barriers? How is the KCC helping remove barriers? What's the WIB's role in that? And then again and again, our employers are telling us that they are just desperate for enough talent. And so those are kind of the key themes that continue to come up, sort of those 4 things. But obviously that's not a strategic plan yet, but just to let you guys know, those are some of the issues that I think maybe the board can dive into, as opposed to, I think our last strategic plan got really focused on sort of operationally, how is it going to work? And I think it would be nice if we could help this strategic plan, everybody kind of come together around some key issues, and then like, what does that look like in each committee? So anyway, we'll get there, but.
Hey, Terry, your phrase, key community indicators, I love that. What does that mean to you? What's an example of one of those?
Yes, that's a good question, but I guess I think about like average wages. So the Career Center doesn't really have the ability to impact it per se at a community level. But when we look at things like average wages, that's a conversation, or like labor market data. That's something that the WIB staff, through all of our data, we can share that with employers to help them understand sort of where their wages fall, sort of, you know, in comparison to others. And also we can look for job seekers and say, okay, well, here's the community's average wage. What is the average wage of the individuals that are being helped through the Career Center? You know, ideally, those individuals are going to have a higher average wage at the end of their work with us, right? Because we're going to be helping them advance, and we're going to be helping them move into, you know, high demand, higher paying jobs. So those are the kinds of things I think when we're looking at these indicators in the community that might show. One of the conversations in the strategic planning meeting was about economic prosperity, right? And so what kinds of indicators sort of tend to show if the community is doing well, but they're not necessarily indicators that we can directly control, but we can certainly think about them as we're helping both employers and job seekers move forward.
I was touched by that comment. Just that's a phrase that Dr. Figueroa uses a lot as well in terms of.
Oh, well, maybe he
community.
rubbed off on me. We talk about data a lot. So I don't remember him saying that, but there's a very good chance that he rubbed off on me when we were talking.
Okay.
We meet monthly just to chat. So
All right.
cool.
Well, very good.
Okay, that is all I have for you all today. I really, really appreciate your insights. And I will talk to the current officers about doing some kind of little video or something, or just testimonial during the meeting to kind of say what they currently do. Oh, and just as a reminder, the member spotlight actually is Brian Bozeman, and I did confirm with him that he is ready for the 9th. So I don't have his slides yet, but he's planning on doing that. And I actually had a request. I feel like I did not really have a chance when I started to tell the board about myself. And it's been something that I regret ever since that first January meeting where I thought that we didn't have quorum. And I was like, great, it's like my second day and we have no quorum. This is awesome. So I was wondering if you would make an exemption for the member spotlight for May and let me do like a quick 5-minute update about me.
We'll think about it.
Okay.
Will there be
Of course.
rebuttal afterwards?
What'd you say?
Will there be time for rebuttal afterwards?
I don't know. I think we're pretty booked that month.
You're not going to reveal to us that you actually also are from Ludlow, are you?
No,
Okay. Phew.
no. Oh yeah. It's like everybody's
Pretty
different.
soon I was like, does anyone actually come from somewhere in Kentucky besides Ludlow?
I'm not from Ludlow and I've never lived there. So no.
All right.
You know, Tara, just in the sense of folklore, you realize that once you've been here after a year, it's not a sharing of information. It's more like a roast. Okay?
Oh, great. Yeah, that's fine. It's okay. It felt like a roast the first time too. No problem. I can take it. I can take it for sure. So, but anyway, yeah, if you don't mind, I'll let Brian know that unfortunately he doesn't get to pick the next person, but
Oh, perfect.
okay,
Sounds
cool.
great. All
Good
right,
deal.
Carol.
And then maybe you guys can help me pick the following person. So, okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we're adjourned today.
All right. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
See you
Carol.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.
See
Thanks.
ya.